Porter. Wonderful. I'm Arnita Porter, and along with Jessica Hurtado, we are here to speak with you today about creating equity-minded online tutoring sessions. Thanks so much for joining us. Can you all hear me okay? Make sure your mic is unmuted.
You go one times. When you come back again, you don't go with this.
If we can ask everyone to mute their mics, please. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much again for joining us today. We're gonna get started. I was thinking we would have a few more moments to allow some other folks to come in, but I think that we're okay. Should we just go ahead and get started, Jessica, or should we allow some time? We're good?
I think we can get going.
Okay, great. All right, great. So just very quickly, I want to run through the agenda with you. We'll welcome you and have brief introductions and give you an overview of today's session. We'll have a few activities. We'll present some material to you, as well as provide you with CVC resources. We'll also have a brief moment for Q&A, and we'll talk about next steps and offer you a survey and some appreciations. With respect to our goals today, we have 4 main goals. Basically, we want to provide you with an overview of equity-based tutoring. We want to discuss equity-minded strategies that support and enhance the valuable service that you already provide. We're going to look at ways that we can connect your practice to the college's student success goals. And finally, we're going to allow you to participate in some activities that will support you in equitizing your sessions. So we're going to have a moment for introductions. This is Jessica.
Thank you, Arnita. Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Hurtado, and I'm currently the program supervisor for CVC OEI, specifically with the Student Experience Division. I work closely with the distance education coordinators, along with deans and representatives for individual colleges throughout the entire CCC system in order to help support the transition of face-to-face student services into the online environment.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm Arnita Porter. I teach in the Los Angeles Community College District, as well as the Mount San Jacinto College District, where I chair the legal studies or the paralegal department. And I teach real estate courses in the Los Angeles Community College District. I'm committed to equity. My practice is social justice and equity centered. My goal is to dismantle oppressive systems and to use equity and belonging practices to do that, and social justice practices as well. I co-created the course, Equity and Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Online Learning Environment for @ONE through OEI, and as well as modules for online counseling and mental health counseling for non-clinicians. And I'm really happy to be with you all today presenting.
Hi, I'm Karen A, and I am so fortunate to be working closely with Arnita and Jessica on the student support team, student experience team for the CVC OEI. I've been in student services at the community college system for 23 years and going on with Access, a TRIO grant, and a PZ, working with Asian and Pacific Islander students, career and transfer. So I really feel like my background, having a degree in cultural anthropology, really helps me working with students from diverse backgrounds. I also have been teaching online anthropology courses since 2007. And I've been fortunate to go through the Course Design Academy with the CVC to be rubric aligned, and also to just finish the equity training through the Peralta District. And so that has taught me some really great information on how to create a diversity statement for my syllabus, as well as humanizing my courses and just improving that overall content. So I look forward to continuing to work on equity and making strides within the online education. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Now we want to just take a brief moment and check in. It's a lot happening right now in the world and in our state, especially with the fires. And so we just want to check in to see how you're feeling. How are you doing? Also, you know, we want to know, how have you been impacted by our having to transition fully to online learning, dealing with COVID, racial uprisings, and again, now the fires. We just want you to share some information in the chat, any challenges you may be experiencing. But while you think about that, we also want to know, what is it that you're celebrating? So just take a moment and dot some things down in the chat. Okay, so Christine says that she misses seeing students' faces. She's glad her students are succeeding so far. I mentioned that I've been feeling anxious, but I hope to come out of the other side of this well-rested. Camilo is doing pretty well. Feels like most have been able to adapt to the current situation, and celebrating the long overdue recognition of racial inequality in America. Yes. John is celebrating that his team has a secure job and supports online teaching for all faculty. Great. It's a lot harder to schedule your time. Okay, Micah? Students not having reliable internet access or quiet spaces to study. Anxiety about the future. Jackie's feeling grateful to be safe and that she has a wonderful, supportive tutoring team and students. Okay, Morgan says it's been tough not being able to work with students in person, but she's glad that these circumstances have pushed us to explore new ways to connect. Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your responses. Keep them coming. And while you're at it, take a moment and shout out your school. Put that in the chat as well, right? Let us know where you're from. El Camino College, go Warriors. LBC, all right. Napa Valley, go Vikings. Okay. Wonderful. Moore Park, okay. Catherine makes a great comment about celebrating the awakening to racial injustices. Okay. We got a lot of folks from El Camino and Moore Park. Y'all are really, y'all showed up. Great. All right, thank you so much for sharing with us. how you're feeling and how you're doing. Cuesta College, yes. And for, sharing something with us that you're also celebrating so that we can hold a space for you in that as well, as you're going through your challenges. Can you go to the next slide, Jessica? Thanks. So let's just jump into the conversation. We know that you're already great tutors, you're already equity-minded tutors, but we want to talk today about, sharing we want to share some practices and some strategies that will help to enhance the great services that you're already providing, and to help you also to be more mindful of what our students are experiencing along with you. So the difference between equality versus equity, this is a really good slide. We know that with equality, it's about everyone has the same services provided, or in this graphic that we have here, everyone has a bicycle. However, when we're talking about equity, we're looking at access, but we're also looking at making sure that the services that are provided meet the individual needs of the student. So how do we do that, right? How do we do that? If we go to the next slide, I really like this graphic because it explains that equity is not about taking a slice of someone else's pie, because this can breed resentment. However, equity means giving everyone access to essential ingredients and skills to bake their own pie, right? So we're providing the individual services that students need to succeed. And that is what tutoring is all about. As far as I'm concerned, tutoring is equity in action. Next slide, please. Equity also, we're looking at the state quality or ideal of being just impartial and fair. There needs to be thought of as structural and systemic concept to be achieved and sustained. So basically, how do we look at equity as a system that we can put in place that we sustain this system throughout our educational systems? How can we make sure that equity is embedded in every area of the institution and throughout our practice, in every area of our practice? Next slide. So very quickly in the chat, what does this image represent to you all? Just take a moment, just drop some things in the chat and let's see how this resonates with you. It's a very beautiful image. Hands holding up a bridge, okay? The idea of support, lifting each other up. Balance, yes. Carried together. Everyone is being supported in their various journeys. Support and holding your ground, yes. Yes, that's exactly where that bridge is from, right? Bridging the gap, okay? Connection with one another. Wonderful. I want you to keep this image in mind as we move through the session today. So, given what you've just shared with me about what this image represents, I want you to think about your sessions, your tutoring sessions. You can go to the next slide, Jessica. Thank you. When you think about your tutoring sessions, what is your process? How do you prepare for your sessions? What kind of environment, or what type of environment do you create for your students? Is it student-centered? Is it learning-centered? Next slide. Also, in terms of the valuable service that you provide, applying an equity lens on that. Are you approachable? Is your content relatable? Are you welcoming? And is the environment that you create for your students welcoming? Next slide. Maya Angelou, it's a great quote. She says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So thinking about your practice as tutors, whether it be on campus or in the online environment, think in terms of what are your students leaving with? How do they feel when they leave your sessions? Next slide, please. Thanks. John Powell does a lot of work. He's with the Othering and Belonging Institute, and he has a great book called Racing to Justice. But this book focuses on othering and belonging. And next slide, please. This notion of othering focuses on it's us versus them, so to speak. So we're looking at a generalized set of processes that denies someone's full humanity based on them being less than or a threat to the dominant group or favored group. We can see how othering is taking place in today's society when we look at COVID, when we look at the racial uprisings, when we even look at how COVID is playing out in the healthcare system, in the educational system. But othering can be seen in various areas, from sexuality, body ability, class, skin tone, race, religion, gender, age. And if you look on to the right of the slide, there's a nice wordle there that comes, where words describe what othering represents and how it shows up in our society. Next slide, please. So the opposite of othering is belonging. And the question that John Powell raises is, how can we create environments? How can we create a society where everyone belongs? And when we're looking at students that need tutoring, oftentimes they feel like they've been othered, and in other times they have been, whereas they may not feel as intelligent, or they may not feel that they belong in college, or they've been provided with information that maybe makes them feel that way, or signals along the way that makes them feel as if they don't belong there. So if they're showing up vulnerable, if they're showing up feeling othered in a lot of instances, how can we make sure that the sessions that we create for our students creates an environment and a space where belonging is centered? So John Powell talks about belonging being fundamental to our sense of happiness and well-being. And belonging means that we're part of a collective we. It's where we fit into a group or a place, but it's also about how that place welcomes or includes us. Oftentimes, we can look at being invited to spaces, right? We can look at, for instance, integration, where now everyone is allowed to participate. Everyone is allowed a seat at the table. However, sometimes you might have a seat at the table, but you may not have the same menu to eat off of, right? You might not be able to order from the same menu. So how do we make sure that we create belonging for our students, where they feel like they are a part of not only our institutions, but they belong in our institutions, and they feel that they are a part of the sessions when they show up with you? Next slide, please. When we look at the language of othering, again, it goes back to them versus us, or us versus them. It speaks to those who are being othered not being respected for their full humanity, and not being allowed to exist in their full humanity. So again, how can we make sure that when we are engaging with students, we are not participating in othering? just to give you an example, when we look at the language of othering, we know that there are certain words that are used. We see words that, not that any of you use them, I don't believe that you do, but we know that there are certain descriptors that are used for our students. And if you go to the next slide, Jessica, thank you. I want to take a moment and have you all drop some things in the chat. How do we language our students? So for instance, we might see negative terms like they're unprepared, or we might hear this in meetings, they're unprepared, or they're low income, or they're not college material. But we know that words are very powerful and that words carry a feeling tone. But I want to just see what you all maybe have heard in terms of negative words being used to describe our students. Can you all drop that in the chat? Okay. Yes, unmotivated, remedial, disadvantaged, lazy, unserious, unprepared, not college ready, remedial, developmental, unfocused, inexperienced, challenged, don't care, cuts corners, problem student, not trying. Wow. Restricting. Okay. So we see, based upon the chat, that we know that these words are out here. We know that these words are used to describe our students. Again, words are very powerful, and even if they're not said, they carry a feeling tone. And students know that these are the words that are being used to describe them. We've even taught them, you know, in some form or fashion, to use these words to describe themselves, whether they call themselves low income, or, you know, they say that they're not prepared, or they can't learn. And so we know that this exists, but this is the language of othering. So the question becomes, how can we shift this language? How can we shift the language that we use to describe our students? How can we shift the energy around that language that it produces, so that we create spaces that are welcoming and that center belonging? Next slide, please. Again, we're going through a lot right now. Again, with racial uprisings, with COVID, with what we're experiencing in the street. We have a big election coming up, and we also are experiencing fires right now. Next slide, please. And so with that being said, we've taken a moment to check in to see how we're all doing. But let's look at how our students are doing. Next slide. Our students are, again, dealing with all of these current events. And a study was done by Education Trust West, because they wanted to just see how are our students doing? How are they experiencing life right now? 3 in 4 California college students are concerned about being on track to graduate. Those concerns are even higher for students of color. We also know that our students are facing financial insecurity, housing insecurity, food insecurities. Next slide, please. This is an interesting slide because it shows that California students report major gaps between their needs and existing supports. And so, can you please mute your mic?
Number 1.
Thanks. So if we look at the 4th number 4 there. It says tutoring, advising, or other academic support. So that 85% of our students said that tutoring, advising, or other academic support would be helpful. However, only 31% of our schools are providing this for our students. Next slide, please. Our students are also experiencing a mental health crisis. 67% report higher level of stress. 66% are concerned about experiencing anxiety and depression or other mental health related issues. 36% say that they are concerned about the risk of developing substance abuse or addiction during this time. Next slide, please. So that being said, students are saying that they will need more support when we return to school this fall. So now that we're here, the question is, what kind of support are we providing and how is that support being provided? 44% say that they'll need financial aid, 45% say that they'll need help getting on track for their career, and 42% need help finding employment while they're in school, and 40% need academic support. The main thing that I think is interesting about this information is that students are reporting feeling disconnected from key campus supports. A lot of our students are not familiar with online learning, and so they've had to kind of be thrown into the fire, so to speak. But I think we've done a great job in making the transition. And this is why what you all do is so important. Students are going to need your services more than ever. And when we think about all of the other occurrences that are happening right now that are adding to students' anxiety, we know that you all will need to create student-centered sessions that are welcoming, that help to reduce their anxiety, and that help to support their learning. Because statistics show that when anxiety is present, when learning barriers are present, like unconscious bias, or microaggressions, or even stereotype threat, when those things are present, it's difficult for students to learn. So when we create learning environments that are supportive, that are welcoming, that show compassion, where empathy is exhibited and demonstrated, we know that this creates supportive environments for our students to learn and thrive. Next slide, please. So belonging matters to students. It's linked to better academic outcomes. 25% of our students are classified as having a low sense of belonging, and support is one of those strongest predictors to increase belonging in school. One of the things I want to point out is that a lot of times you'll see data that says creating a sense of belonging or a sense of being welcomed. And my point is, you either belong or you don't. It's not about creating a sense of something. You want to make sure that they do. So how can your sessions increase belonging? How can your sessions be welcoming so that learning barriers are reduced and students are able to learn? Next slide, please. So again, we know that you all are doing great work, but it's important to look at, how do we know? How do we know what's working? How do we measure what we're doing? Sometimes we're just in the flow of things. It's one student after the next, but we're not really measuring how these students feel when they leave our sessions. Sometimes we're not even measuring if they have a true understanding of what we have been providing tutoring in. So let's look at a couple of things here. If you go to the next slide, please. In addition to learning the discipline or being tutored on the discipline of the problems or the challenges that they bring to you, we need to look at what students need to succeed. And so the R&P group did a survey a few years ago called the Student Support Redefined, where they surveyed over 900 students in our community college system, asking them basically, what is it that you need to succeed? What things are present for you when you feel successful? And so with this study, 6 things bubbled to the surface. Students said that they needed to feel directed, they needed to feel focused, nurtured, engaged, connected, and valued. Directed, students say that they have a goal and they know how to achieve it. Focused, you're helping them to stay on track, keeping their eyes on the prize. Nurtured, they say that they feel like somebody not only wants them to succeed, but helps them to succeed. With respect to engage, students say that they need to participate in class as well as extracurricular activities. And connected, students feel that they are part of the community college and that they feel valued when their skills and their talents and abilities are all recognized, and when they have opportunities to contribute and feel that they are appreciated. Next slide, please. So let's do a breakout session here. What we want you to do is to look at your sessions. Remember, there were some questions early on in the presentation. How are your sessions? How do you prepare your sessions? Are your sessions welcoming? Do they demonstrate a culture of caring? Just think about your sessions and think about how do they demonstrate equity-minded practices, and how do you measure it? How do you know that your students feel directed, focused, nurtured, engaged, connected, and valued? In the breakout groups, we want you to just, again, think about this, but discuss this. How do you know that your students feel this way? But also, what kind of practices do you already use with your students? How do you already make your students feel welcome? And what do you think that can be done to increase belonging and to help students feel more welcomed and to reduce learning barriers so that learning can actually take place? So we're going to give you about 15 minutes to go into breakout sessions and talk about this, and then we'll come back and share out. And while you're in these sessions, if you'd like to choose one person to maybe be the scribe and another person to provide the share outs, that's fine. Or we can just, you know, kind of wing it and see how we share the information. But the point is for you all to discuss this in the breakout sessions and be prepared to share out. Okay, so Karen is going to break you out into sessions.
Okay, great. I just wanted to let you know when you go into your breakout sessions, you can unmute yourselves. And now I'm going to open the room and see how it goes. Okay, so we have 7 breakout rooms, just so you know, and I did assign Chuck to a room. Let's see if we have, let me do one final check and see if anybody needs to be assigned. So let's see. So I see that Bessie Rodriguez has not moved into her group. I didn't set it as mandatory that they could not join the main session. So maybe that person stepped away from their desk.
Okay, so welcome back. I hope that your breakout sessions were engaging, that you were able to not only share what your equity-minded practices are, as well as learn from your peers. We're going to take a moment and have you all share out so that we can share what has been discussed with the larger group, if that's okay with you all. So we're going to, who wants to go first? How about that? Maybe group one.
Yeah, I could go first.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So
Tell us who's speaking.
yeah, my name is Dari Yusuf Harris II. Representing El Camino College, specifically the C Village. I know we have a lot of different departments on the call, but something my group 7 talked about was really about engaging the student. We feel like in the online platform, we've lost a lot of that personal engagement. And so we were really discussing how to reach out to students, you know, the different methods of not only contacting students that we already had a relationship with, but students that might be lost in the gap, students that wouldn't have known about our resources, that feel intimidated through the online platform. And so we were actually talking about like things like Club Rush. I know El Camino has like a student expo coming up where we share resources about our school, and just trying to focus on spreading the message about those resources to then, you know, just get information out in general. And then in our personal tutoring sessions, I think the highlight, if I had to mention one thing, it could be asking questions and engaging the student as best as we can. And just when you keep the conversation going, you get to know more about that individual. And when things become that personal, you're able to adapt and then, you know, focus how you tutor. And that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Hidari. Some good stuff. Asking questions, engaging students best as you can, reaching out to them, particularly because they may be intimidated with the online platform, and inviting them to things that are happening in the online environment, such as Club Rush. Great stuff. All right, who's next? And that was group 7, I believe.
Hi, I'm Jackie, and I can, I'll try to speak on behalf of group 2.
Thank you, Jackie.
We talked about being genuinely welcoming and being patient, showing care towards our students coming in, asking them a lot of questions like Dari had said, and engaging them in their learning through just making them feel welcome and valued. And also we talked about how for being equity minded, how we approach everybody differently based on their needs of what they're coming in for, and having it be more student centered, so that we're meeting everybody at where they are in their level, and using practices such as giving some examples, like using practices such as if you know what their favorite color is, using that color while we're tutoring together. and using their names and their information as part of the tutoring session. And then we also talked about how do we measure and how do we know that our students are focused and nurtured and engaged. We talked about how we can collect data as to the students who are coming in, and not only that, those who are returning, and asking about where they're getting the information about tutoring and coming for tutoring, and discovering that a lot of tutees who keep coming back are also inviting their peers to come back because they're enjoying the experience and they're learning from our experiences together. And therefore they're telling their friends and their classmates, and those students are also coming into the centers. And I don't know if I missed anything, but anybody from my group, if I missed anything, please speak up.
No, I think you did a really good job.
Thanks.
That was everything we talked about.
All right, thank you.
That's great, Jackie. All right, great job, group 2. I really like what you mentioned about bringing the students' names and culture into the session. You know, you mentioned if you know that their favorite color is red, then you use that in the session. I also like the fact that you mentioned how if students are satisfied, then of course they're going to spread the word, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, but they're going to spread the word, right? And bring in more folks into your sessions, more students for learning. And this is really, this demonstrates how successful you are in making them feel welcome, in creating an environment where they belong and where they want to bring others into the environment in order for them to get some support as well. So great stuff. Thank you so much. All right, next group. Not all at once.
I can speak to our group, though I don't remember what our group number was. So if anyone who was in my group can remember, then that would be great. 3. Okay, we were group 3. Thank you.
Great.
Sorry. So we talked a lot about just what our practices have been. I think the common things that stood out was we try to really focus on having an environment that allows for the technological challenges to be overcome. So we talked about, we have several people have sort of a welcome desk when students come into tutoring. There's a welcome desk, a sort of like a little orientation that you can ask questions about, just how does this Zoom work, what to expect. Okay, your technology is working, your internet's cutting out, maybe try logging off, logging back on. Do you have a webcam? If not, that's okay. You know, it's just things like this. Sort of setting it up that whatever technology you're at, we are going to try to meet you there. And you don't have to feel super comfortable with the technology, because that's a problem that a lot of people have. We also talked about how to evaluate whether students are feeling directed, focused, nurtured, and engaged, and connected, and valued. It was mentioned to try to survey students, add those sorts of questions to our surveys that I think many of us are doing to try to see how they are interacting with the online tutoring, and to incorporate those questions into those surveys. And if I missed anything from group 3, please let me know. We didn't take notes, or I didn't take notes.
Great job. And what was your name? I'm sorry.
Catherine Marsh. Sorry.
Oh, thanks, Catherine.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff. I really like your point about evaluation, and adding those 6 success factors to your survey is a great way to capture that data. And then you can look at that data to see where the challenges are and, you know, what areas need improvement. So that's a great idea. Thank you for that. I also really like you mentioning that you're meeting students where they are. That's great that there's a welcome desk. and where they're allowed to ask questions, but if they don't have a webcam, then that's okay. You're meeting them where they are. And again, with folks feeling uneasy with technology, it's really a good practice to not make them feel badly about what they don't have and just meeting them where they are, like you said. Great job. Thank you. All right, next group. Hello out there.
I can go.
I was gonna, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was in group 5,
Okay, and what's your name?
Christine.
Hi, Christine.
And I hijacked the conversation a little bit in the beginning because your question, how do our sessions demonstrate equity-minded practices? I kind of went into the negative and how are we not? Because one of the concerns I have is about we're not offering drop-in sessions right now. And my awareness that students may be sharing computers and internet at home and not know in advance when they can get help and wanting to be able to meet them in that moment. So I was asking some of my peers what they're doing for drop-in.
Great.
And I also heard a really great idea in our group, because someone mentioned students don't necessarily know you, and their discomfort maybe in coming into a session and they don't know you. So we are talking about having tutor photos on the web page and maybe a little quote or a little story so that students might connect a little bit before they go in and meet someone they don't know. So that was a little bit of what we talked about, but I know we talked about more. Any of my group members have more.
Okay, that's really, you mentioned some great points. You know, while we always want to talk about the good, we also need to see where the challenges are. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Definitely drop-in sessions are needed for the very reasons that you stated. And I really like the idea of putting up a short bio and photo of the tutors. Sometimes folks are uncomfortable putting their images up there, but sometimes I know for me in my classes, I just have my students put up a photograph of something that represents them. So if it's their pet, or if it's a location that they like or something to that effect. But I really think it's important to have that photo, image, if you can, as well as a short bio, because it helps to start that process of building trust and connectivity. So thank you so much for that, Christine. Okay, who's next?
I can go.
Thank you.
My name is Zachary Johnson. I was discussing with a fellow group member which group we are, and our conclusion was 6 ? So if someone else is the real group 6, I apologize. But anyway, a lot of what we talked about, it was similar in theme, like the things like bios and meeting students where they are and evaluating. But really, I think what that all boiled down to was just the constant practice of empathy. You have to understand where a student is coming from, you know, what their circumstances are, and be willing to meet them wherever. Because I know in my own sessions, I've encountered students that are really, really eager and enthusiastic to learn just as often as I've encountered students that are just so done. And I found in both cases, it's entirely possible if you just come from that place of patience that everybody was talking about. I've had both students, and I've seen it happen, leave saying, "Thank you so much, I feel better." And just because even the one that really stuck with me was there was one student, she was so nervous because she hadn't taken math in years, to which I shared, when I came back, I hadn't taken math in 5 years either. I get it. And I started right in the class you're taking. And she was so afraid to just say what she was thinking about, like, I don't know if this is wrong. I don't know if I'm going to sound stupid. And I'm like, this is the time to get stuff wrong. This is what tutoring is for. And at the end of it, she said something that I think was really touching. She said, "Thank you so much for not being patronizing. You really made me feel like I could do this." So I think everybody's been saying it, but just being empathetic to your students makes such a world of difference.
Thank you, Zachary. That's a powerful, powerful statement for students to say, thank you for not being patronizing. That says that speaks volumes about, you know, the importance of empathy and patience when we're engaging with students. I remember a student who had math anxiety to the point that when the math instructor would come into the room that was there to support students, she would see him and just start shaking and get up and literally run out of the building, because her anxiety with math was just, it was very real. But, you know, with patience, with empathy, with care and concern, all of these things that you all have been mentioning, she eventually was able to get through, you know, those math courses, graduate, and transfer to a 4-year university where she has now graduated and is entering graduate school. So those practices work. Thank you so much for mentioning that, Zachary. Okay, who's next? Have we gone through all the groups?
There are 7 groups.
I think we've had 1, 2, 3. Okay, well, if no one else wants to go, feel free to enter some information in the chat.
I think, see, because we didn't even, so I think we're group 4.
Okay.
Did anybody from group 4 speak?
No.
I guess it'll be me.
Go ahead, Melinda.
Do you want to take it, Ashley?
No, you got it.
Well, my name is Melinda, and I'm a tutor, an English writing tutor at Clovis Community College in California, Fresno. My group, what we talked about, it was just how we kind of balance all 6 of those points that we discussed initially, the students feeling directed, focused, nurtured, engaged, connected, and valued. And we ask questions. One of our teammates or group mates mentioned how she asked at the beginning, how do you feel? Or at the end, she'll ask, how did you feel in the beginning and how do you feel now? And even at the end, when you're asking them how they feel now, it's nice to even ask if there was anything else that they would want to ask or discuss. Yeah. Sometimes students need more than just help on their paper. They don't feel right physically, or they don't feel right emotionally, or they want to get something off their chest, and they kind of feel comfortable and open with us, but they're not sure if they want to share. So questions is really helpful. And about support and belonging, we like to remind them that we're also students and kind of engage them with and trying to focus them in their own work. We like to, for example, when students will feel happy about their A in their paper or their class, and we remind them, well, that was all you. We just sat there as your cheerleader and helped you become a better learner, and you did that all on your own. And I know that because I keep track to not give you anything, but to allow you to create and craft your own work. And that helps them, feel good about themselves. That helps them feel definitely engaged with their work, valued.
Nice.
And also paying attention to behaviors, paying attention to their surroundings, and anything that we can pick up. I like to take notes, keep notes on a Post-it. That way, if at any point in the tutorial we can encourage all balance and mindfulness, whether it's physical, taking a break, making sure that they're eating and drinking water, that they've pet their dog or watered their plants today, just, yeah. I don't know if I missed anything else. Please jump in.
Great. You've given us some wonderful pointers. I really, really appreciate you moving beyond the discipline that you're tutoring and looking at the person and what is it that they may need outside of what they're being tutored in. that speaks to, again, looking at the whole person. And, you mentioning that you're reminding them to drink water or to water their plants, but, bring in nurturing practices and mindfulness practices. I really appreciate you for mentioning that. I also like asking at the beginning and at the end, how do they feel? That's a good way to gauge the session and to see not only where they are, but where you are, and how that information can also support your practice and enhance your practice. So you'll know where, there may be a couple of places you need to make some shifts. So thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay, so if there's anyone remaining, feel free to put the information in the chat. And we're going to be mindful of the time and just keep things moving. Jessica, would you mind moving to the next slide? Thank you. What I'm excited about is that the things that you all discussed in your breakout sessions, you're already doing, you're already doing equity-minded practices. So asking students about their lives, their career goals, their strengths and their challenges, sharing your educational plan. I like how Zachary mentioned that, he came back to school after a while, and he started in that same class that student did. Learning their learning styles. I think that's very important. People learn differently. So, if you know that someone is a visual learner, do you have images? Do you have video? Do you have different ways to demonstrate the lesson so that they can learn in the best way that they learn? So identify, what supports their learning. Ask questions about that. Some people need more than just words to read on the page. And also making sure that you diversify the materials that you bring in. Bring in materials or images that also reflect the student demographics that you serve, so that they can see themselves reflected in the work that you bring in. They can see themselves reflected in the curriculum. Demonstrate how to be a successful college student. That's very important. To me, that's about not only showing them how you got to be a tutor, but sharing your challenges and what you had to do to overcome those challenges. Make learning visible for them. Provide different types of activities that can help them to see their learning in process. Can you go to the next slide, please, Jessica? Thank you. Also check in with students about their understanding and acknowledge their potential. Other thing that I love that was mentioned, celebrating their accomplishments. Find ways to do that, little small, low-hanging fruit, but find ways to celebrate their accomplishments when they learn, how to move step to step through a process. Demonstrate the value of collaborative learning. What about peer support or setting up study groups? Connecting them to available online resources that could be both online as well as on campus and in the community. Demystifying the educational process. That is really important because a lot of students come in, they don't really know how to be a student yet, or they may have been a student for a while, but they're still kind of foggy about things because rules are changing, or they don't know the language that's used in the academy. They don't know how to navigate the online environment, maybe Canvas or different platforms that you might be using. But it's good to demystify that process. That removes a learning barrier. And lastly, request feedback about their experience with you. Again, how it was just mentioned, ask them how do they feel when they first come in, and then ask them how do they feel at the end, but also ask them what supported their learning during that process. And you can also ask them in the beginning, what is it that they need to support their learning? And if they don't know, maybe that's something that you can, help them to discover. So these are some equity-minded practices. Again, you all are already doing these things, but bringing in empathy, compassion, mindfulness, you know, even sometimes taking a moment before your session starts to just be still and do, you know, a deep breathing exercise, or just sit in silence for a moment so that they can gather themselves and prepare for the wonderful information that you're going to share with them. So again, these are some great equity-minded practices. You all are already doing the work, so I applaud you for that, and thank you for sharing the wonderful work that you're doing. Jessica, if you could move to the next slide, please. I want you to remember that image that was in the beginning. You are a bridge of support for our students, and that is an important, important job. It is one of leadership, and they need you. They need you. So next slide, Jessica. Jessica is now going to step in and talk about the ecosystem tools that are available through CVC and OEI. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Arnita, and thank you everyone for sharing. This is wonderful just to hear from all of you and your experiences. I won't take too much time on this topic. I just wanted to make sure that we address a little bit of information just in case anybody in the room is curious about this information. Some of you may be familiar with either Pisces or NetTutor. If your campus is using a different tool to provide online tutoring, definitely totally fine, but I wanted to highlight just specifically what is going on with these particular tools within our CCC system, right? And so to start with, just for those of you who may not be familiar with the tools, Pisces is an online collaboration platform. And so this is a tool where you as tutors from your campus can actually log in and use the platform, which has live video stream, audio, and an opportunity for you to collaborate in real time with a student. NetTutor is a service that's provided to your students as well, but you wouldn't be the one providing the tutoring service. It would be an outside tutor who would be coming in to provide that service. It's important to note that when we talk about these two tools, we always want to encourage our colleges to first implement Pisces, right? Why? Because that gives our tutors, our college tutors, the opportunity to do the tutoring, right? So we want to see your faces, we want to see your experiences, we want to see your skill sets, providing the service and the support to your local students. And lastly, Sophia is another tool, and I have my colleague Chuck here from LSI who provide these tools for us and to talk a little bit more. But Sophia is another tool that's specifically for math homework and assessments. Okay, I did include a little bit of information regarding funding. So if anyone in this room right now in the audience is maybe not a tutor, maybe you're the coordinator, or maybe you want to learn a little bit more about what does that mean? Does your campus have access to this tool, to these tools? Please feel free to email us at support@cvc.edu and we can provide you the information that you're looking for. Okay. Oops. And then the next information I wanted to share are the upcoming opportunities that we have available. So if you are using Pisces or NetTutor, every month, the folks and our colleagues at NetTutor Pisces, they actually offer ongoing trainings and opportunities for quick workshops. So please visit our website. I'm going to put that, or if Karen, you can help me put our website, the link to our events calendar. Oops, I put one of those events twice on there. But if you go to our cvc.edu website, events calendar, you will actually find what's coming up next, what are some opportunities and some quick sessions that you may be able to jump in for maybe 30 minutes up to an hour. And then we wanted to go into providing you quick resources. We will be sharing these slides and we will be providing the recording of this webinar. We actually have a YouTube channel with all of our webinars that have been provided through CVC OEI. So we encourage you to visit that YouTube channel to learn about all of the resources and all of the great information that we have to share with you. And so that link will be put in the chat as well. So any questions, anything, we're here to support you. And then Arnita, did you want to mention anything about these resources?
I would just say, if you all haven't seen it, check out the little video that's there on empathy. It's really wonderful, Brene Brown. And also, this is some good information here. I'm going to also add some more resources, like some books. I'm sure you all have been inundated with books now, because that's the, you know, the whole, that's just everywhere right now. But, you know, if we can just provide you with a few more resources that you can use or pass on to your folks on your campuses.
Awesome. And so just look out, we will send out another email to all of you saying thank you for joining us today. That'll be pretty much like your little ticket saying you were here, you were present, you participated. And so please look out for an email maybe in the next few days. Just give us a bit of time to put together the recording for the closed captioning to be completed, and then we'll send that information out to you, okay? And then one last thing.
I just wanted to mention that you all are great leaders, and Oprah Winfrey has a great quote: leadership is about empathy. It's about having the ability to relate and to connect with people for the purpose of inspiring and empowering their lives. And you all are doing a wonderful job of that. Keep it up. And again, remember to be mindful. And thanks so much for joining us. And, you know, reach out if you need any help with anything.
Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to let us know. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.